Hi, this is Richard and Craig with another mindful moment.
Yeah, we're going to be exploring something in relation to mindfulness and motivation, and particularly at work, because there are a lot of misconceptions about mindfulness at work. And sometimes research is done, and maybe the researchers don't quite understand mindfulness very well, so it's easy for findings to be misinterpreted.
And then the media loves jumping on that, don't they?
It does, and sometimes, and that of course misinforms the public. So, a couple of things, like for example, some research, that found that mindfulness reduced motivation.
Yep.
So got people.
Big headline. Mindfulness reduces motivation. Shouldn't be taught in workplaces.
Yeah. So and the research did find that by the criteria that they used to measure motivation, mindfulness reduced motivation across all the parameters.
But how did they define motivation?
Well, the thing was that they also found that mindfulness improved performance. And so that doesn't make sense. So when you look at how motivation was defined, two essential criteria. One was arousal, which is another way of saying stress. Pressure under the pump. And the second thing was future focus. Will I be all right? Will I succeed? Will I fail? What if I do? What if I don't? Mm-hmm. Now, that's a useful motivator to lift us out of apathy. So to that extent, and as it's looked at in all literature, arousal is much better than apathy and, being indifferent and so on. But of course, too much stress takes us over the top of the stress performance curve. Now, how is it that people are less motivated? Well, from mindfulness perspective, less aroused, that is calmer, but the improved focus means better performance, so more on task. And when we're actually in the moment on the task, we're not anxious about the outcome. Right? We're not anxious about winning or losing, a great athlete freezing up in a pressure moment in a big match because...
We're just in the moment.
In the moment with the point, not if I win this big prize, then, and that is what loses focus and often gets us very stressed. So mindfulness helps a person to feel calmer, but to function better. And so that headline, for example, hey, boss, you don't want your workers to meditate, is perhaps a bit misinformed because it misunderstands what it means to be mindful.
Yeah. Certainly if you look at flow states as well, that's all about being completely present, effortlessly present, and being at our most productive and our most creative, playing the best game of football, perhaps.
Yeah. And another one of the misconceptions is about being non-judgmental. Mm-hmm. And there's a kind of non-judgmental way in which we measure mindfulness, which is different to non-judgmental in the way that some people misunderstand it. Because we do need judgment. We do need to make decisions. We do need to weigh things up. Yep. And so I suppose you could almost use a word like discernment for that.
I think it's a better word, and so we can differentiate discernment and judgment.
What mindfulness undoes in terms of judgment is being incredibly judgmental, incredibly reactive, seeing something and getting intensely critical about it, which often is a distraction, consumes energy, is demotivating, and doesn't allow a person to actually just get on task and get on with dealing with the situation.
Yeah, and then of course mindfulness helps us to look really deeply into ourselves and to get in touch with our own values and intrinsic motivation. Yeah. There's the whole field of acceptance and commitment therapy, which does a really good job of that, helping people identify their values and live a life that's aligned with them. And when people start to do that and to do that deeper listening, I think they actually become much more motivated, particularly to do the things that are important.
Yeah. So there are a lot of misconceptions about mindfulness generally, and particularly in relation to work. So hopefully we've just cleared a couple of those up so that we can help people who are working, and especially in challenging jobs, etc., to be mindful, to thrive, but also to be productive as well.